All right, Jeff, I got one. Today, we're going to talk about why my budget as a subcontractor is so much more difficult than your budget as a general contractor to manage. There's no way your budget is anywhere near as complicated as mine to manage.
How does that make your budget harder? But now you're just bitching.
So I finally won an argument with GC. So I'm Adam.
I'm Jeff.
And we are the principals at Ascent Consulting. We work with construction companies all over North America. I'm a former trade contractor, mostly. Jeff's a former general contractor. And we're going to start with whose budget is harder to manage, because I'm going to go and say my budget as a subcontractor is always harder to manage than yours as a general contractor.
I'll give you the labor side of it. Traditionally, a general
right.
contractor doesn't manage the labor.
I'll take that up front.
But harder, I don't know. I don't think you appreciate what we have to go through as a general contractor to manage our budget.
I probably don't, but I don't know if you appreciate anything about what we have to do to even build a budget, much less manage it. Our budget has 5 different cost types, typically.
Okay.
We have material.
Yes.
You have material,
Yes.
maybe.
You have material, maybe.
Subcontractors.
Yes.
I have subs. You have a lot of subs, right?
Yes.
I have labor.
I probably don't have labor.
You probably don't have anywhere near the labor that I've got.
Well, nowhere near it, yeah.
Right?
I have labor probably, but not near to your level, yeah.
Right? Then I've got equipment, which
I have equipment.
I'm renting equipment. You're renting a little bit of it, right? And then I've got my operating costs, things like my plans and my shop rags and my commodity, my consumables, my permitting costs, things like that, which you also have.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I've got much more complicated materials than you, and I've got much more complicated labor than you.
That depends.
All right, say more about that on the material side.
Okay, so let's say I've broken the concrete scope apart and I'm buying the mud, I'm buying the rebar, I'm subbing out the formwork. Or I might be buying the form material too. That's a thing.
Good.
But I'm going to sub out the form, then I'm going to sub out the labor to form it, then I'm hiring rod busters, and then I'm going to hire separate finishers as opposed to turnkeying it.
Okay, and if we're talking about concrete and I have to dig a trench with a trencher, then I've got to put
I was thinking elevated, but okay.
We could do elevated too, sure. I now have to get up there. I have to lay the deck out. I've got to work around all that rebar that you had somebody install. I've got to run Smurf tube or PVC. I might be doing embedded PVC coated MC.
How does that make your budget harder?
Well, I have to buy all these different materials and all these parts and pieces that go together. And then I've got to get people to put it all together and assemble it in the deck and tie it all together. And I got to get it done in 8 hours so you can pour concrete on top of it.
Well, okay.
You made a schedule I have to follow.
It's not. It's more complicated than that. You just got out of bed. That's all you fucking do.
That's right. You showed up, but you guys ready for concrete? I'm going to pour it in 8 minutes.
So
we're still tying stuff down.
Well,
later I got to come back and pull wire through it. And if somebody stepped on it and broke it, now I got to cut a hole in it. I got to scan it and core it. It gets super complicated.
So but now you're just bitching. That's what I'm a
subcontractor. Of course I'm going to bitch at the GC.
That has nothing to do with the budget.
You're fucking up my budget.
I'm trying to point out the fact that the complications of the budget, I just gave you an example where it was equally as complicated.
Once you buy out the job, how hard is it for you to manage your budget? Do you have some change orders that come in here and there?
So, all right. So realistically, the challenges are, change orders are a real thing. The management of it's going to come down to, I'll start on the bottom and work up. Subcontractors not being timely and giving me pricing for that said change.
Okay, that happens.
Right.
Not on my jobs.
Never on yours. No.
Not on my jobs.
Never.
But it does happen.
Then on the flip, and to own it, sometimes we as the general contractor fuck around and don't get it submitted timely after we've got our pricing assembled, et cetera. Or we got the pricing with the subs and then assembled it. We take our sweet time to assemble it.
You do have to wrangle pricing from a lot of different subs for some changes. If it's a plan revision that comes out, you got to collect from 25, 30, 50 subs sometimes.
Yeah, our challenge is we think we might know what happened. Mm-hmm. Like here's the change, we can kind of see it, but I mean, we're not perfect. And so I send it to you and ask you to price it and you don't get back to me. Let's just say whatever.
Sure.
You're still the electrician here.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I don't think there's anything to do with the electrician here, but I got to ask him. And you don't get back to me. And then, okay, well, there was nothing there's no electrical scope change there. And then I price it and I send it out to the client. The client, he fucks around and takes forever to review it and busts my balls about it and all that stuff that they do. And then 6 months from now, you come to me and say, what the fuck are we doing in the hallway right here? I'm like, well, that's the change I sent you that you didn't price. So sorry. But
Well, that's on me because I probably didn't follow the rules of the contract by submitting my price in a timely manner.
I think it's more complicated than that. I love that you take that approach. I don't think that all subs take that approach.
I would agree with
that.
that.
They did not when I was running work.
Okay, fair enough.
But thank you for being that guy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like, read your contract, right?
Right,
That's your favorite. That's your favorite line as a
I don't know
general
if it's my
contractor.
favorite, but
It's one of them. Top 3. You should totally read your contract.
I don't have to say it. I just slide it across the table. Have you seen this? Did you know this existed?
I highlighted the section that's pertinent for you.
Right. Right.
That's the kind of PM you were. I remember.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Jeff and I actually met running a project together. He was the GC's project manager, and I was the electrical contractor's project manager. And I was the guy who always got my change order pricing in before the deadline. And Jeff used to use me as an example, going, why can't the rest of you be more like him? Made me not very popular amongst the other subcontractors. But I did get all my change orders approved.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm.
I liked working with you. He was good working with
It
you.
was fun. Well, that's why we still work together.
That's true. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So from a budget standpoint.
Right.
So I will grant you, as a traditional GC, I think the labor piece is where
I mean, the way it occurs to me is as a general contractor, you buy out a job against your budget and then it's kind of locked in. And unless there's change orders, it doesn't change.
Okay,
Whereas mine, as I'm buying material pricing might change. So now I might go over my budget on buying out certain material. Like if copper goes up, or God forbid, somebody starts some tariff war with China and we have to start, there's pricing escalation and there's taxes and tariffs and all this stuff. And I can't go back to you and go, I need a change order because price went up. You're like, no, we locked you in on a lump sum contract. You have to handle that price change. So now my budget could go sideways, or the cost of labor goes up. You know, there's labor, over time, eventually labor gets more and more expensive.
Sure. Yeah.
The cost of labor gets more expensive. The benefits go up. The burden goes up, taxes, whatever it may be. And if I'm not keeping my people productive and meeting the production rates, then I start falling behind. And now I have to either pay more people or spend more hours or both.
So
I can blow my labor budget.
So I think the productivity thing is where I absolutely 100%, if I'm paying any direct labor as a general contractor, I probably have a small crew. They're maybe doing some cleanup and or safety, maybe some other carpentry stuff.
Rough carpentry, sure.
Yeah. It's not productivity based stuff.
Right.
Whereas, if you're an electrician,
running conduit needs to go in at a certain rate per hour.
You've got to rough that floor in 5 days or whatever the number is. And if you don't, then you've got a problem. And I have a problem. You're probably getting a phone call from me.
And if I estimated at 8 people to rough that floor in 5 days, and I find out that it takes me longer, then I either have to get better people or pay that might cost more, or I have to put a couple extra people on. And now I'm going to blow my labor budget because I'm spending more hours to get that work done than was estimated. So that was where we used to run into the biggest problem, was tracking and enforcing production rates, because construction workers aren't the most efficient people. I mean, on your best day, your best construction worker is 80% efficient. 20% of their time is spent getting material, moving that material where they need it, getting things set up before they actually do the work.
Right.
So it could be an hour in the beginning of the day and an hour at the end of the day for cleanup, and I'm getting 6 hours of production. And if they leave for 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch and they go over, I've lost another hour maybe.
Sure.
And so now I'm down to 5 hours of productive work. I'm at 65 or 70% efficiency now. And I'm trying to get them to do that work in 5 days. Now I have to put more people on. And we put labor factors in on our estimate. But still, if my team isn't able to keep up, or sometimes there's other trades in the way, or they've left a mess and now I can't work as efficiently as I wanted to, that's where we could be managing our budget day to day sometimes and week to week as people report their hours and we run payroll and we see those costs at the job. I'm constantly tracking labor versus production versus estimate versus budget, and how am I going to land on this job? That's why I think it's harder as a trade contractor to effectively and actually manage a budget.
I'll grant you that. There are variables ongoing throughout the project let me say it this. Yeah, there are variables ongoing throughout the project there's changing things on a daily basis.
Oh, sure.
What I was going to say is, from a general contractor standpoint, best practice, you're right. If you're doing it the way I ran all my jobs, I bought the job out fast, quickly, early. I scoped the living shit out of it.
Yep.
I bought hard but fair, and I made sure I had my scope covered so that I could lock in that commitment. Now, whether I had a good estimate or not is an entirely different podcast.
We won't even.
Budget versus commitment, we'll talk about that some other time. However, if you buy it quickly and then get it locked in and you do a good job scoping it,
right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. The thing I have to manage at that point is the schedule. And if I bought you well and we talked about how quick are you going to rough the floor, how quick are you going to trim the floor, et cetera, you gave me answers based on the production rates that you had factored into your estimate. And I'm like, that works with our schedule. Then we are kicking ass.
Right.
And we manage it that way and we go. And then
if I start falling behind, then as the GC, it's your job to go, you need to pick up the pace.
Right.
Like you're not meeting the commitment you made.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The most commonly it's those turnkey trades. We're buying those out. We are managing the schedule and production and logistics of the job. Change management becomes a thing for sure. And then there are cases though where material costs, GCs are impacted by that. They're buying the raw material and they're hiring labor only. This happens in stick frame apartment construction all the time. The GC buys all the lumber.
Sure.
And then they hire a carpenter crew to go put it up.
Right.
So they are GCs do deal with that. It doesn't just have to
pre-engineered buildings too. Don't you guys usually buy like a steel package and then you have a labor only sub come and do an assembly? Any
kind of a steel package, you're usually buying the steel package, and then you hire the iron workers to erect it. Mm-hmm. So that's very common too. Okay. You break those up, but they're still locking in the price on a purchase order or a subcontract, labor only subcontract. We're not managing.
How does that work in civil? Do you guys? Does a civil package get bought out as a turnkey package?
Usually,
supply, remove, and bring in material, remove excess, and then also the equipment. It's all in a package.
Yeah, but there's usually a conversation around quantities, like how many cubic yards are we moving? Is it a balanced site?
Okay.
What are you hauling off? What are you hauling on? And so there's you come to an agreement about like, well, this is a balanced site, and you've factored all that in. Every now and then you have to get into maybe you have a unit rate in the contract where if like you have more cubic yards going one way or the other, it's a smart buyout strategy in case something happens unexpected.
Well, I've given you a pretty good case for why I think the subcontractor's budget is much harder to manage, but I'm going to throw you a bone here.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you, as a trade contractor, something that's oftentimes not clear to us is when do I have a change to you that you're not getting the money from the owner for to pay it? So it's not a pass through. Like when do you have to actually eat that change?
It's a good question. And there's probably 1,000 reasons, but generally it would be, I didn't do a good job buying it. There's a scope gap.
Okay.
So let's say, I'm going to make a very simple example.
Sure.
Actually, this is a real world example. This happened to me. I was renovating a Roberts furniture store, turning it into a Kohl's department store. This is 25 years ago.
Okay.
And we had to strip the entire parking lot and repave it. There were existing light poles. Okay. And I was a young PM at the time, so this was a really good lesson and a scope gap. Mm-hmm. Take down the old poles. And there's a concrete base there. Mm-hmm. Remove the bases.
Yep.
And then repave. There's a very important piece I just missed when I described that to you.
Yeah. The wire.
No. Actually,
and the piping?
Filling in the hole after because the light poles, I didn't.
Oh.
The new light poles went in different places.
Oh.
So the old poles, we pulled those out of there. It's old sonotube, whatever. We plucked them out of the ground. There's a hole in the ground. I didn't have filling that hole. I forgot to buy it. I never even thought about it. That's a great example of how
Would you think they were just going to pave over it?
I don't know what I thought. I was a kid. I didn't know what I thought. I guess. I don't know what I thought.
We'll just put some dirt in it.
I just
pave over it.
I didn't think about it. So the point is, that's a perfect example of I had to write a change order that came out of
your budget.
My budget that I could not go back to the owner on.
And you thought you had all these cost savings. You're like, I'm going to get this thing done cheaper than the estimate. The estimator probably had it in there.
Right.
But you didn't buy it?
No, I don't know the estimator had it either.
Were you the estimator?
No. No, I was not. I think it was just a miss all around. Okay. That's a good example, but any kind of a scope gap is where you come to me and say, here's an electrical example, low voltage wire. Who's got it? Who's landing the low voltage wire? Door hardware, electrified door hardware, egress door hardware. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a panic bar that's electrified that, it's got to sound an alarm or some kind of thing like that tied to the fire alarm, or maybe egress control or something like that. There's power up above the ceiling. You've got to hit it with power. Then there's low voltage coming down to the device or whatever it is. Who's running all that?
Okay.
The hardware guy probably isn't because he just installs it. So there's a gap there that you have to buyout strategy. If you don't know that, you're going to miss it and you're going to be paying somebody later.
Got it.
Exclusive of whether you had it in the budget or not to begin with.
All right.
So it's those types of things.
Any other times that you have to eat a change order and you can't pass it up to an owner. I've heard about schedule delays. Sometimes it's
Sometimes.
the GC's fault that it's a schedule delay. The owner has no culpability for that, no responsibility for that.
Sometimes, yeah, I guess if I'm not, I mean, I take this all on as the GC. I've contractually, legally, it is my responsibility to make that job run well.
Yes.
So if there is a delay, even if you had the manpower shortage and you're 2-3 days behind, it doesn't matter. I'm still on the hook for that schedule. You and I have to have a hard conversation, and all the subs behind you.
Right. Like if you're the framer and nobody can do anything in the walls until the framing is up.
Right. So let's just, I don't know what sub you are, but you have a delay. It's significant enough that the train kind of goes bam, bam, bam.
Right.
Now you and I have to have a hard conversation about getting caught up, but it doesn't stop the fact that everybody else just ran into the back of you. And I'm going to have to ask them to man up or shorten their durations or something. And maybe I have to pay them. Maybe I have to pay them to get more manpower, because it's just, there's no other way to do it. We're in a box.
But wouldn't you go back to that first sub and say, you're going to have to reimburse, they'd have to reimburse you for the cost of the other subs?
Yeah.
It's kind of that back charge situation where it passes through.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah.
What about weather delays? Because I know that can sometimes hit a schedule, and there's usually something in the contract that gives you some.
That's a depends answer, because weather days are generally not compensable. Sometimes they are.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time you get time, but no money.
Right.
That's not a sure thing. Sometimes you can get paid for the time too. And sometimes it depends on the kind of weather delay. There's no hard and fast answer to that. That's a lawyer depends answer.
Got it. All right. So I think we've settled that. My budget's harder to manage.
Okay.
I win, finally.
No.
I finally won an argument with the general contractor. Awesome. So I finally won an argument with the GC. Awesome. In all seriousness, if this is a problem that you've encountered, managing your budget, figuring out what's going wrong with your budget, figuring out why things are going sideways on your projects, that's the kind of problem that we're here to help solve. Feel free to book a consult with one of our consultants using the link below, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Construction Hot Takes.